Why do we snack? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds have something better to do. Almonds are heart healthy and full of energy, with the crunch that keeps you in the game. California almonds. Crunch on.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we've got for you today. Cavs win, but everyone's talking about CP3. Tiger withdraws. Have we seen the last of Woods' winning ways? We asked Bob Harig. Is Washington sending RG3 a message? Plus, a Hall of Famer calls Tom Brady a cheater. We have two of the Super Bowl champs in our studio.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
I'm Adnan Virk in for Greeny today. Great to have you with us on Mike and Mike. Alongside Golic, we are presented by Progressive Insurance, and all of our guests joining us via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. I know it's cold across much of the country. Yes. I get that it's February. Yeah. So cold today, Mike. I almost literally couldn't get out of my house. Like, I don't know if you've had this happen before. You just kind of pull, the door won't open. I go get some hot water, pulling it down.
I'm normally strong enough to open the door. I
do always set it up for you.
Obviously, we're learning more and more about you each day.
You're a weak man. You're a Canadian.
So it's early in the morning. We're going to get to your trip in a second here. Yeah. Did you have to go, honey?
Yeah, I did.
Did you come down and open the door for me? Is this how your day started?
She was sleeping on the couch, so I was just like, can you put a little elbow grease in this
Oh, my gosh.
Eventually, I had to climb through my window to get out of the house.
Smokes.
Imagine like a neighbor going by, walking their dog or something.
All of a sudden, cops are there.
Who's this guy going through his window at 5? I work on Mike and Mike. Sure you do, buddy.
Sure you do.
You don't look like Mike Greenberg or Mike Golic.
Holy
It's so cold, I thought I was back in Canada.
Couldn't open a door. All right, so here you. Before we get into this, ton to cover.
Lead story.
Here is Greeny off today. Adnan's going to fill in. So, I like to converse with Adnan before he's going to come on the show. Now he's calling his first college basketball game tonight in Rhode Island. So
where were you expecting to hear?
Where were you and what game did you call?
So Mount St. Mary's facing Bryant University in Smithfield, Rhode Island. So about an hour and a half from where we live in West Hartford, Connecticut. So that's the first fear. Am I going to actually make it to the gym? I don't know where I'm going.
Right.
Okay, we get there, everything's fine. Collegiate atmosphere, about 2,500 fans. And the biggest fear is this, because you know what this is like. You've called games. It's
yes.
Like, everyone always says, don't say too much. But then my fear is, but I have to say something.
Yes.
I can't just lay out the entire time.
There's a fine line, of that, yeah.
But thankfully, Steve Donahue was tremendous. He was my analyst. He, of course, was a coach at Cornell, took him to the Sweet 16 at Boston College. So as you know, Mike.
Your first call, so you enjoy it?
Oh, it was great, man. Because I think, as you know, I'm not a particularly bright guy. So
we all know.
I was like.
Or strong, as we've learned.
So much for Hercules.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know how play-by-play guys, maybe you know this, can memorize so many different names. And this is basketball. Imagine in football, all those names. And I know you've got a shot chart. You kind of can master the ability to look up and down. But there are times in the heat of the battle, basketball is a fast game.
It is a fast game. It's a fast game. I think hockey would be very typical.
I have no idea how those guys
to do the play-by-play for the action that's going on there. Much less whistles that would than basketball where you get a decent amount of whistles.
There's number 32, over to 66.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know their names.
I want to go.
And then I can't pronounce them. That was my biggest fear when I was doing, and certainly it's different doing the analyst and doing play-by-play, but either way, you're talking about people, and my biggest fear is saying somebody's name wrong. Because you know what? Their family's watching. They don't want to hear their kid, whatever association they are to that, their name pronounced wrong. So I always sat with the SID a lot, going over names that I wasn't sure of, and usually still screwed them up.
So
you know what I did is I gave them nicknames.
Exactly. Yeah. The big MD. Yeah. You're going to love that guy, the big fella. Straight from Australia. Well, that's the thing. You're right. That was my fear. Like, just be factually correct. Get the names right, get the numbers right, and from there, let the analyst do
Let the analyst do his job. Just blame him if it didn't sound lousy.
Well, that wasn't his own defense. Well, I don't know anything about basketball anyways. What do I know?
Good for you. I'm glad you did that. I'm sure there'll be many more after that.
No, I'm not sure about that part of it. But
so you get home late last night and have to get up and do the show.
Exactly. And after I finally emerged through my window to get to work here, I realized that we had a heck of a game last night between the Cavaliers and the Clippers.
Well, a heck of a game for the Cavaliers anyway. This game wasn't as close as the final score, but
we'll get to Cleveland in a second. So they win at 105-94. Their 12th straight victory, one shy, the longest win streak in franchise history. LeBron James, 23 points, 9 assists. But everybody, Mike, in case you're just waking up with us on the East Coast or even Central Time, is talking what happened with Chris Paul. Here was the play, and then you got to hear what he had to say afterwards, which is creating some controversy.
And now another whistle down in front of the Clipper bench. And Chris Paul, I think, is the recipient of a technical foul.
Lauren Holtkamp, the official. See, DeAndre Jordan had inbounded the ball to CP3. He was dribbling the ball up the floor, and he kind of turned over his shoulder. I don't know what he could have said to earn the technical foul. Doc is staring there in disbelief. DeAndre Jordan did a good thing because he grabbed Chris Paul and pulled him away from Lauren because he was about to get his second tech right there.
Well, this was a game where they were getting destroyed. The third quarter was ridiculous. They had 5 tees in the game. 4 of them came in that third quarter. So the tension was high. Emotions were high in that one. And Chris Paul absolutely does not feel he deserved that technical. And in his explanation, he said something about the official that has certainly grabbed a lot of social media attention.
I think we got to show better composure, but at the same time, someone was ridiculous. Like the tech that I got right there was ridiculous. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care what she say. That's terrible. There's no way that can be a tech. We try to get the ball out fast every time down the court. And when we did that, she said, and I said, why, and she gave me a tech. That's ridiculous. If that's the case, then this might not be for her.
And so the remarks lighting up social media, as you referred to, Mike, because people are accusing him of being sexist or saying maybe a female referee shouldn't be in there. Before we weigh in, here's what Ramona Shelburne had to say. She does a great job covering the NBA for us. And speaking about Chris Paul and specifically that play and perhaps Paul's intentions.
This is a guy he's the head of the Players Union. He's a pretty stand-up guy, but I do know Chris Paul's a really competitive guy. He's very emotional after games. This wasn't just a loss. I mean, they were down by 32 points in the third quarter. This was one of 4 technical fouls in that third quarter. So they were obviously, upset, frustrated, annoyed, and I think you caught him in a moment after the game where he didn't necessarily think through his choice of words, but from what the person I just talked to was pretty close to Chris Paul, their understanding was that he was referring to the fact that she's a rookie referee.
So Lauren Holtkamp is the 3rd woman to referee NBA games full-time this season. She is a first-year referee, and as you just heard Ramona say, she believes that Chris Paul was referring to her ability to do the job, not insinuating that a woman can't be a referee. And I think that the major point here, Mike, is exactly what she said about Chris Paul, the fact he's a stand-up guy.
Yes.
He's not a type that you'd expect to say something controversial or have weighted meaning behind it. I think he was just frustrated, and if people want to take it in a certain direction, that's their prerogative. But I do not think he was being sexist in what he was saying.
Well, and that's exactly what's happening. He's getting destroyed in social media. And if you watch the play, and when you watch the play, it all happened pretty quick. As Chris Paul said, they like to get up and down the floor fast. The ball went out of bounds, and he grabbed the ball out of bounds and turned and started running with it and flipped it to the referee, to Lauren, for her to get the ball. I think to DeAndre Jordan. I think that's whoever was taking it out to get the thing going, and that's when he supposedly said, she said, and he said, why not, and because you look and he said something and boom, the tee hit. So listen. That's what he's saying was said. We'll see if more comes out of what was said. There's been no, at this point, any statement from the NBA or from the officials about it. I'm sure we'll find out a little more, but it happened very quick. And so that being said, this is her her rookie year here. She's done 6 years in the D League as well. She's done WNBA games, but a lot of D League, so she's certainly reffed the guys before. And Violet Palmer is the other a woman official in the league right now. As you mentioned, there were 3. The other is running the officials in the WNBA.
Right.
So I agree with you. I do not think he meant it in a sexist way at all. I do not. Just as Ramona Shelburne was talking about, I listened to her a lot on this after the game, saying if it was a male official and Chris Paul said he may not be long for this, I mean, nobody would have had an issue at all, right?
Issue, yeah.
Now, the question will be, would he said that about a male referee? That's what people will say. When we say that, well, if he said that about a man, he'd have said and we'd have thought twice about it. People are going to say, well, I don't think he would have said that.
He would have just said that's a brutal call. He wouldn't have said this guy should be at the league.
And Chris Paul probably, I'm sure hindsight always being 20/20, you're not in the heat of the moment, I'm sure he would like to have not said that at all. I don't think he meant it in a sexist way, but I don't think, in thinking about it, he would go back and want to say, I don't think she's long for this, or I don't think he's long for this, if they're going to make calls like that. Just leave it at that was a brutal call. I have no idea why they did wrong and no idea why they made that call, but he said it, and it blew up. I mean, that's the thing about social media. It absolutely exploded on social media. But I'm going to agree with what you said and what I've heard as well. Obviously, with Chris Paul is the stand-up guy that he is, what he does for the league, that he did not need it that way. Now, it's going to keep going and keep rolling through the day-to-day, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see if we find out more of what was said, or if that was whatever was said, it was quick. Because if you watch the highlight, it was quick. Right. He was trying to get the ball going, passes it to her. He starts running down the court. She obviously she had to say something because he stopped and turned, and because he was running down the court. He wanted to get the ball into him and get going. So he was giving it to her to give to the inbounder to get to him, and he stopped and spun, and whatever he said, boom, there's the tee, and he was incredulous as to why he got DeAndre Jordan had to actually pull him away from Lauren, because he had no idea why he would have gotten a technical.
It may be as innocuous as something is not another word, and you say, what'd you say to me? It's like, that's it, you're teed up, and you go, hang on a second, I don't even know what just happened.
Right.
You're right. In the heat of the moment sometimes, listen, you're not going to be able to hear things clearly, and maybe she misinterpreted or misheard what he said to her or just didn't like his body language, but you're right. One pronoun is what was his If he just said, I don't think this individual is cut out for this, maybe then people would still think he was insinuating something, but yeah, basically it was that last part of criticizing that's gotten Chris Paul in a little bit of hot water. Tiger Woods, Mike, it is such a fall from grace for this guy, and it's well documented. He has not won a major since 2008, but he's showed signs of progress, and it literally is like seeing a guy go up a hill, take 2 steps forward, and then 3 steps back. And a couple of years ago, it was the Player of the Year with 5 tournaments, and even though it wasn't a major, you felt like, all right, he's figuring things out. He's been able to stay healthy. Last year was an injury-ravaged season, was not able to stay on the course and compete. And he comes out and starts this year, misses a cut, and then his second event, yesterday he had to withdraw from the Farmers Insurance Open. He spoke to the media for 90 seconds after withdrawing, telling reporters his lower back got tight during the delay. Here's Tiger explaining what happened and why he had to get out.
When did the back start to hurt? In between suspensions, I guess when we had that break, it just never loosened back up again. It's frustrating that it starts shutting down like that. You know, I was ready to go. I had a good warm-up session the first time around, and then we stood out here and I got cold, and everything started deactivating again. And it's frustrating that I just can't stay activated. It's just kind of the way it is.
Did you consider not playing?
No.
For the record, Woods was on the 12th hole, par 3, number 3, Torrey Pines' North Course, was 2 over through 11 before withdrawing. So it's not like he was having success before he had to withdraw due to injury, but this is a body that just will not stay healthy and will not allow this guy to compete.
Yeah, you know, I was watching this, and you could see he was hurting the whole time, but he was kind of hanging around. Got to even, you know, which everyone was like, whoa, because you didn't know where his shots were going to go at all. I was watching it on the Golf Channel, the announcers, it was like every shot you just weren't sure. You know, at one point he's chipping up from the rough up to the green and knocks it 40 yards past the green. I mean, it was just really incredible to watch. And I understand what he's saying about his back, certainly, because if you do anything long enough, you have some back issues. And we're talking in sports. I certainly had them, but my son Jake had the same surgery Tiger had, the discectomy. Jake had a couple of discs worked on, and it took him a while to get over it. A lot of people are different. There's another guy in his team who had that surgery and recovered a lot quicker. Jake, it took a little longer, but as he's training for his pro day now, you know, it feels good, but it's something you have to deal with every day. As Tiger said, he warmed up. You know, and that's what guys with, you know, really any injuries you have to warm up. But everybody can know what it is to have a bad back. And what do? You loosen it up. You warm it up. And he has his routine, as most people with backs do or injuries do. With all the surgeries I had on my shoulder from the first reconstruction I had, there's 17 rehab injuries I do with dumbbells that I still do to this day, and that was back in 1987.
You still do to this day?
Still do a bit of them, some of them, in some variation today. So you get your routine down, and he has his routine to get his back warmed up, and then you get the fog delay. So now you're sitting and you're waiting, and I guess it's what you do with your time. You know, you don't know how long the delay is going to be, so you don't know how long your process is going to be because you have your process of how long it takes to warm up. Regardless, I guess, of that is to say, is his back still in a situation where this is what's going to, if he doesn't warm up properly, this is going to happen. You know, is this something to do with the surgery he had? Is it just the fact that he got thrown up out of his warm-up, and as he said, his glutes wouldn't activate, and that's, you know, the muscles in your butt help support the muscles in your back, and that's what he's talking about when they're not activating. It's hurting his back. I get all that.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely do. But what a question, I mean, that you have for a guy who's 9 times he's withdrawn from an event, but 6 of those have come since 2010. And since the start of last year's season, he had 9 starts. He finished only 2 events, missed a cut in 3 of them, withdrew 3 of them, never finished in the top 20. So, I mean, here's a guy who always had this, incredibly athletic body, and certainly people had whispers about that.
Yes.
No doubt about that. They had it.
and stuff, yep.
Right. And it's a body that is absolutely breaking down on him. And now he had all this time off to come back, and even though he was back last week and he didn't golf particularly well, but every analyst out there, and I don't think it's rocket science, is you need reps. You need to get in tournaments. Tiger has always famously said when he's coming back from these injuries, are you ready for this tournament? Are you sure you want to be in this tournament? Can you win this tournament? He says, I don't enter a tournament I don't think I can win. Mm-hmm. And I heard analysts say, well, this year might be that year where even he may not think, this is even last week they were talking about, going into this week, not thinking he could actually win, but just using it as, I need reps, because we know what he's playing for. He's playing for the majors, but he has his routine and his certain tournaments he goes in before the majors. And now that's all up in the air again.
Adnan, Virk in for Greeny alongside Golic, Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. When was the last time you heard this? Tiger Woods currently 56th in the official world golf ranking. He must reach the top 50 in the world by the end of the Honda Classic, which begins February 26th, in order to qualify for the WGC Cadillac Championship. It's just a no-brainer. You always pencil in Tiger to every tournament, but now if you can't finish, you can't put up numbers, it's going to be real difficult for him just to even get in some of these tournaments. Here's Paul Azinger speaking about your point, the irony of the fact that this was a guy who had this superhuman body, the adherence to fitness, and now that body is betraying him.
I think the real irony is that the most fit golfer in history is at the mercy of an unfit body. I'm not saying he's not cardiovascular, fit and all that and blah, 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 but his muscles are big and strong and tight. And when you take all that time off, you're probably going to have to loosen them back up. It's a different muscle. Golf's a ballistic game. It requires a lot of speed and power right there at the right moment.
And that's why people always said in golf, you don't want to be too big. Because of the fact that, you need those certain muscle fibers. It's all about precision and accuracy rather than just sheer mass.
You need to be fluid, and you need that time to warm up. And is this where he is, where it has to be the proper warm-up, all the time? Or, it's like the racehorse, a little bit of a tweak, and basically you're done. Or that really expensive car, one little thing happens to it, and you have to shut it down. I'm just... You're right, though. When's the last time you heard the word qualify in a sentence that had Tiger Woods in it?
Right, 1995, almost been 20 years.
Because his normal routine before the Masters is the Honda Classic. It's at the end of this month, February 26th, and then the WGC Cadillac Championship. But he has to he's normally been in that.
Right.
Now we would have to qualify for that. That's even if he's ready to go, and then he plays in the Arnold Palmer Invitational March 19th, and then the Masters, which is in the beginning of April. So that's the program for him. Who knows where that is now? And even if he can come back to golf in the Honda Classic, again, he's got to qualify. He's got to jump 6 spots at least in the world rankings. And the way he's golfing, I mean, he may go the other way before he comes back down. I think a lot of people questioned. The question still is always going to be on him. Is he getting 18? And I said it a while ago. I'd like to see him get there.
Right, far away.
I'd like to see him make a run at it, but I don't think he is going to. And I think that's what people are waiting to see. And it just seems I thought, okay, this year he took all that time off last year. Try and get yourself right. And, I mean, you want to talk about forgetting how he feels physically.
Mentally,
how
Herculean
damning
roadblock, knowing
this
that
is.
you can't get out there and perform the way you're used to performing.
Especially since you had all that time off to prepare and now get your body right. And now I warmed up, I felt good, fog rolled in, had a little bit of a delay, and I couldn't loosen it back up, or it didn't get loosened back up. That's what caused you to pull out of the tournament. I mean, it doesn't bode well going on. The back's a finicky thing. But what Azinger said, I mean, is true. Swing a golf club really hard. See what you're doing with your back. I mean, you want to talk about that being involved
a lot of torque
in everything you do. So that's I'll be real interested to hear next from him on what is next and when he will be able to, or try to get out there and golf again. Because there's no doubt he's going to want to try and be out there for the Masters.
Right.
It's just a matter of what he can do before that because he does need all the reps.
Yeah, if he sticks to his normal events, he may have to play the 3 events before Augusta just to get healthy, as you're saying. And he's now finished. That's playing all 4 rounds, just 2 of his last 9 official starts in the PGA Tour dating back to start of 2014. Has not won a major now since 2008. And I'm with you. I used to always feel like, well, he's in his mid-30s. He's going to play into his 50s.
Right.
You know, theoretically, if he just win 1 major for 2 or 3 years,
he's got time to do it. You know, he's got time, but father time and injuries aren't may not allow this.
The longer that time elapses, you start to feel like it's a miracle if he can get back to what he used to do.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Wow.
I got to hand to you guys. You guys are good. This is quite a production team we have here. But not only the audio of my call, part of it, we're going to have the real gusto that I delivered momentarily, but also video here on ESPN2. Great job on my analyst, Steve Donahue, last night, and the entire crew. Adnan Virk alongside Golic, Mike and Mike, as always, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests joining us via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Lots to get to even in the next 20 minutes, as we'll talk what's happening with RG3 in Washington, and also a fun idea in terms of amenities and stadiums. But first, in case you missed it last night, the Cavaliers beat the Clippers 105-94. The Cavs' 12th straight victory. LeBron James, 23 points and 9 assists. Chris Paul getting in some hot water after being critical of Lauren Holtkamp, who was the 3rd woman to referee NBA games full-time this season. He said afterwards, when talking about the technical she gave him, that's ridiculous. If that's the case, this might not be for her. People upset at the fact that maybe he was referring to her gender, not the fact he's a first-year referee. Mike and I will get into that later on. Plus, Tiger Woods withdrawing from the Farmers Insurance Open, so his career, once again, tough to get on track. That SportsCenter brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Buying razors at the store shouldn't feel like getting punched in the gut. If you're sick of getting beat up by high razor prices, do something about it. Get amazing razors and grooming supplies delivered from DollarShaveClub.com for just a few bucks. That's DollarShaveClub.com.
All right, so Adnan again in for Greeny this morning, and Adnan had some late duty last night. You called your first college basketball game last night in Rhode Island. It was
Smithfield, Rhode Island. Yeah, the teams were actually Mount St. Mary's and
Bryant College.
That's correct.
Okay. Your first game ever called.
Never done a basketball game. I've done 2 CFL games on the radio. I did a women's volleyball match. I did some baseball.
I know you've done the baseball,
game. First time calling a basketball
First time basketball game. So, obviously, you develop a style. And I was somewhat amazed at, from what I understand, some of your final call. I don't know if you prepared this or that it just came out from years of listening to others, but let's hear some of your call. I heard it was pretty amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely was very passionate about it, had a lot of gusto. I mean, take a listen. This was just a small sampling of it.
The puck is still loose. 11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Slope. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay, that wasn't you.
That's Al Michaels, actually. The Miracle on Ice. But that's what we were trying to.
That's what you were trying to get. All right.
Here's another one. I'm
okay.
sorry. Here's actually what
all right.
There's a long shot. A penalty, I believe. The Giants won the pennant. The Giants won the pennant. The Giants won the pennant. The Giants won the pennant.
That's actually Russ Hodges that called the Thompson home run.
I was just going to say, which of those teams was called the Giants?
Yeah, that was from 1951.
Can we get to a real one?
Okay, all right, enough fun here. Here was actually my play-by-play call. This was Bryant University taking on Mount St. Mary's.
I don't believe what I just saw.
I love Jack Buck. I had to pay homage to Jack Buck in there as well. Okay, here is the actual call. And Golic, by the way, who has called many a game, so I take your advice. I take your criticism, if that's what's founded here. Take a listen, see what you thought.
Mount St. Mary's trying everything here, but instead it's Bryant pulling off the exciting victory, 55-53, as they continue to play well on their home court. What was an exciting game.
You know, if you play that and then the other 3 calls you played, I don't know if I can tell the difference.
I was about to say, it's even worse than you thought now. These are the great calls of all time to hear me hyping up NEC action. You go, who's this guy?
Well, but listen, it's a game you're doing, so I don't play it. And it sounds like it was a good game.
It was. I'll say this, Mike. No matter what the game is, no matter what level, you just hope that it's competitive.
Well,
you get a 2-point game decided on the final bucket, you love it.
The worst thing you want to do is have to go to the film material early in the game, and start, having a conversation with your analyst
exactly.
about the chores you got at home, because the game's so bad. Good for you. I'm happy you did that. that. I know I'm sure you'll be doing plenty more, and good job trying to sneak in the great calls.
I appreciate that, my man.
Yeah.
One quick question for you, because what I always find is interesting is Pat Summerall, famously one of the great play-by-play voices of all time. But people always assume, guys like yourself as a former player, that you would just be the color guys, right, the analyst. But I always thought it was fascinating. Summerall did some color work, but wanted to be a play-by-play guy. Yep. He enjoyed calling the action. Did you ever want to do
that?
Never.
It never really entered my mind. A guy more who I worked with here and worked with on games, actually. Before NFL, NFL Live, it was, NFL, NFL Tonight, you go way back to what the show was. Mark Malone,
that's right,
who was a quarterback in the league, hosted the show. And then myself and Sean Salisbury and Miller Hodge were the analysts. And I also did, I believe one year it was the Insight Bowl with Malone. He was the play-by-play. He was another guy who was a player, but went to the play-by-play side of it and did a great job. So yes, I never really had a thought and wanted to do that. I never wanted to but
spread your wings.
You can do that, because then you can do the play-by-play and you can add in some color as well, right? Because you played the game. So it was a nice job when they do that.
I think it's worked out for you well, though. I think you've had a good career.
I'm trying.
If you want to transition to that in your golden age of 70s, you're more than
thinking
welcome
about
to.
that.
Mike and Mike, as always, on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Charles Haley, known for being a phenomenal player, a Hall of Famer, great career with the Dallas Cowboys. He's also been an outspoken lad, and there's been talk with the New England Patriots and the fact that maybe these 4 Super Bowl rings, because of Spygate, because of Deflategate and the shrinkage, which you and Greeny have talked about, maybe these rings are tarnished. Listen to what Haley had to say, because clearly he was not holding back when talking on the Talk of Fame network.
Joe didn't have to cheat. I've lost respect. I've lost all respect, because when your integrity is challenged in the game of football, from there, all his Super Bowls are tainted. All his Super Bowls are tainted. Because you got to say, okay, it just didn't happen overnight. 12 balls deflated and 12 ain't, and they all out there in the same place. And then when you got Belichick coming on for 3 different times trying to explain it, you know something is wrong.
That's Charles Haley. What's trending now? Brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. New improved taste, 10 great flavors. Have you tried 5 Hour Energy shots lately? And in terms of that conversation has been trending. There have been those dissenters, Mike, who say, yeah, okay, Tom Brady's great and Belichick, they had a dynasty, but they did so by bending the rules and being fraudulent at times.
And the Joe he mentioned was Joe Montana, because that's the comparisons now. Now it's he, Joe Montana, and Terry Bradshaw who have the 4 Super Bowl rings, while Tom Brady's been to the most as a starting quarterback to 6. But I don't think nobody's putting Terry Bradshaw in the conversation when you're talking about greatest of all time. And some people think he should be higher than he is, others don't. But
a great defense is always
yes. When you're talking about greatest of all time, it's Joe Montana. People talking about Elway, Johnny Unitas. You want to throw Dan Marino in there. Some of the greats. And then the question had been, is Tom Brady now there? Mm-hmm. And we hadn't got your thought on it. Greeny and I both say if you use the word accomplished, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, because he has accomplished the most, winning the same amount of Super Bowls as those 2 guys, plus getting to 2 others. Right. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? That's the debate that will go on. There are many that don't want to get into that debate, so I guess part of it begs the question, if you could have one quarterback in the history of the game to quarterback
I think is a fair question, yeah.
Would he be your quarterback? And I don't know if he would be my quarterback.
I'd go with Montana.
But that doesn't mean that he can't be considered the greatest of all time. And I guess my thought is, I'm not holding this against him. I'm not in the Charles Haley camp. Congrats to Haley, Hall of Fame career, obviously just voted in.
Entitled to his opinion.
Yes, it's exactly right. I think Tom Brady is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time from his talent. Mm-hmm. He's a guy, again, it's one of those great stories. A 6th rounder gets his chance because somebody else gets hurt. And here you go. Look at the career he's had. Has their team been under some the speculation or even the proof of Spygate, and now with Deflategate we'll see what happens? Yes, but I watch. When I watch, I see one of the great quarterbacks of all time. So to me, his rings aren't tainted, and I know a lot of people will never buy in fully to his rings, buy in fully to that organization and what they've done, buy in fully that Bill Belichick is one of the great coaches of all time, and that's fine. You are completely allowed to have your opinion. I think Bill Belichick is one of the great coaches of all time, and I think Tom Brady is one of the great quarterbacks of all time. And to me, I'm not tainting their accomplishments because I see what they do on the field. And as I've mentioned, Name the other, Hall of Famer. Let's go with the 4 Super Bowl rings.
Sure.
Name the other Hall of Famers on Terry Bradshaw's team. Name the other Hall of Famers on Joe Montana's
Tons
team.
of great players.
Name the other Hall of Famers on Todd.
Right.
When you're talking at that level, you start bringing in everything.
Mm-hmm.
What era was it in? What teams were they on? How were the defenses? Who were they throwing to? What kind of talent did they have at receiver, at running back? And outside of Randy Moss,
right? Wes Welker.
We'll see where Gronkowski is certainly trending in a great position,
right?
But
did not have great receivers and running backs a lot of the time in those years. It was just kind of the guys that a hodgepodge of characters, and Brady would make it work. I'm with you. I think Brady's in the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, and you can certainly point to the fact that it has been proven the Patriots have bent the rules in the past, and there's a bit of a taint there. But I'm with you. The smear of that is not enough to dismiss Brady, and not enough certainly to take away from the accomplishment of what he's done. The 4 Super Bowl rings, one of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time. We'll get into more conversation with regards to football, and a quarterback would love to be on that list, but clearly has had some struggles the last few years. Robert Griffin III. This is kind of a fun one here. Before we get into what's happening with Washington, the Dolphins, and this is I'm curious what you think about this, because you hear this sometimes, Mike, about football. It is such a wonderful, made-for-television sport, but sometimes when you go to the game, depending on where you're sitting, depending on the weather, obstruction, all that kind of stuff, unruly fans, people sometimes prefer to stay at home. How about what the Dolphins are doing, a team you played for? Installing living rooms in their renovated stadium. Would that make you want to go to the stadium?
This is fantastic. I love when stadiums try and do things like this. Now, we'll talk about, obviously, the less expensive one. This one can be somewhat expensive. But they always say we want to give you that home feeling when you come to the stadium. They're truly doing that here. As part of a $400 million renovation, they're installing 32 living rooms in the lower bowl of the stadium that come in groups of 4 with 30-inch wide recliners and 18-inch televisions in front of each seat. It's just incredible what they're doing. So it's a living room experience. Food comes with it. Food, drink, a lounge, separate entrance. Now, it's $75,000 for a year.
At least it's cheap.
Okay, but my point is there, and this is, I guarantee you,
it's going to do well.
32 of those, gone.
Yeah.
Gone. There'll be a waiting list for that experience. But, it brings to mind, Jacksonville, and we've seen it in baseball, obviously, in Arizona with the pool.
Yeah.
Jacksonville has revamped some of there and put a pool in. We see others that will put kid playgrounds in there. If you take your kid to the game,
I think it's an awesome idea
for them to go play. So
awesome.
You're talking the living room, okay, $75,000, but a play area for the kids to go play, a pool, whatever it costs you to get in there.
Right.
But amenities,
make it affordable and comfortable.
Yes, amenities that you go, okay, that's pretty cool. So that's a question we want to throw out there in our Twitter feed at Mike and Mike. You can get me at ESPN Golic, and you can get Adnan at Adnan ESPN. What amenity would you like to see your stadium, whatever sport you love, whatever games you go to the most? I don't care if it's in the hockey arena, baseball, football, basketball, whatever. What amenity would you like to see your stadium put in that would, if you don't go to a lot of games, would make you go to more games? If you really go to games, you would say, I'm going to go try that because of that amenity. So what amenity do you want your stadium, your arena to have that would entice you to go 2 games there or to more games there? Again, you can tweet that to at Mike and Mike, at ESPN Golic, or at Adnan ESPN. And we'll read those throughout. This is a more expensive one, but I think it's fantastic. And I'd be stunned
if it doesn't work out.
If they don't sell all 32 of those.
I was going to say, because if it's an issue of just money, trust me, there are ways to subvert that, meaning luxury boxes, corporate suites, etc. People are going to pay up, and you're right. If you want the ultimate experience, we've seen that with fans now. They're willing to pay if you have that price. Always, you can tweet us, as Mike mentioned. One tweet we got here from Philly Steve. He's clearly giving away his loyalties. Do the Eagles trade up to get Marcus Mariota? We were talking earlier about the fact that he could fall to 6 right now in Tom McShay's mock draft. Nick Foles coming off an injury-plagued season. Even before that, he actually wasn't even playing that well for Chip Kelly. So there is some thought Chip's going to want to get one of his guys, a guy who knows the Oregon offense well. He can finally install what he wants to translate from college to the pros and have somebody who's well-versed in that. So that's definitely getting some currency.
And the Eagles are sitting at number 20. So, I mean,
it's going to take a lot to get up there.
It would definitely take a lot to get up there. I completely agree with that. And everybody's saying, oh, my gosh, Chip Kelly and Mariota, what he could do with him. Now we'd see that offense that we saw at Oregon. We'd really see it in its full bloom in the NFL. I think they're going to have a hard time trading up for him unless he does fall. And again, this is a wacky thing. We'll talk to some of our former management guys of how you would go about this, waiting to hear interest, having a plan in place on draft day in case he does fall. Because if you throw out interest, the team up high may act like they want to take him just to get, Philadelphia to trade for him, when in actuality he may fall. I don't know. So it'd be interesting if we talk to some of our guys how you would go about that process. We're at number 20. We want a guy that might go in the top 5, but might fall more than that. How do we go about doing that?
Mike and Mike reminding you, if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Wow, heard this Valentine's with a beautiful bouquet from 1-800-Flowers.com. For special offers, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Adnan Virk in for Greeny today. We're Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Speaking about giving up a king's ransom, move up in the draft, and putting all your eggs in one basket, that's what Washington did with regards to Robert Griffin III. And his first season, you felt like he brought back a lot of excitement and he brought back a lot of joy and enthusiasm to a fan base which hadn't enjoyed it for years. Now, obviously, it's turned sour because of the fact Griffin hasn't been able to stay healthy, and when he's been on the field, he's been underperforming. Jay Gruden, the coach who was brought in to help acclimate Griffin better to the offense and to the NFL, that has not worked out this season. Gruden was critical of him publicly. So take a listen to what Mike Milwan had to say, just how challenging this situation has gone now for RG3 and that Washington franchise.
This is an unbelievable insult. It's intentional. It's purposeful. It's sending a message not just to Robert, but to the fans of the Redskins. This guy may or may not be part of our plans. You could have not named any players. I mean, if you don't know exactly who's going to be your starting quarterback, then why name any players at all? What you've done is you've just provided fuel for an entire, couple of months of offseason controversy, which is, again, maybe what the Redskins even want at this point, is what they're familiar with. But stunning. If you're Robert Griffin, how do you feel about this? That you've got these other guys named, you think you're supposed to be the franchise player, you're not even mentioned with a group of guys. So I don't know what kind of spin is going to be coming out of Ashburn, Virginia, the next few weeks.
A letter from the fans sent by the organization, Robert Griffin III, not included in that conversation. You would think he'd be one of the pillars of the franchise. Ryan Kerrigan, Alfred Morris, Trent Williams, Deshaun Jackson were the guys who were mentioned. That is who the Washington franchise feels like. They're the brand right now, Mike, not the franchise quarterback you gave up both for. You look at his numbers right now after watching ESPN2. 73.2 was his QBR in 2012. 2013, a precipitous drop to 40.1, and this past season, 30.8. He went from fifth best in the NFL to one of the worst in the league.
I think it's just amazing. Again, this is a letter from the team. So they control if you put names on them or not, or what names you put on them, going to their premium ticket holders about, hey, this is why you need to stick with us and look forward to the season. This is what we got going on. And you mentioned the Kerrigans of the world and Alfred Morris, Deshaun Jackson, Trent Williams, and no quarterback. A few years ago, this guy, the number 2 pick in the draft, has that huge rookie year, and then we've all seen what's happened since then. So, you know what?
You'd be insulted, wouldn't you, if you're RG3?
And yes, I would be insulted. Well, listen, we're also not there to know what's the relationship, what's going on behind the scenes. But I know if I'm RG3, I know what I did my rookie year. I know I've had injuries and I haven't played well before that. So now you need to, at some point, you get tested, okay? And they don't even know if he's going to be their quarterback. So you find any ammunition you can. Now, I would think he doesn't need a whole lot of ammunition anyway, from where he was to the thought process about him now from his coach. Really his last 2 coaches, but more importantly, the coach that's with him right now.
Who was brought in to help him.
That's exactly right. And he ends up, not playing, nicked up, not playing, bench. I mean, it couldn't be going worse. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on the type of person you are. Do I take this, cut this out, take this letter, and do I stick it up on my wall at home and highlight, the names that are on there?
Motivation comes in many forms.
And say, okay, I mean, they don't think of me at all to put me on this. Yeah, I mean, if you need that motivation, some people think you should be motivated enough, but there's always things that can motivate you more, always. And this could be one of them. My own organization that picked me number 2 has lost such confidence in me that they won't even mention me to their big-time ticket holders about what to look forward to with this. So, yeah, that's highlighted, that's starred, that's hung up at home. Now, not work, at home, my own personal motivation. So when I walk out that door and everything I do is geared toward showing that I can be the guy that you saw my rookie year.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
I did mention Tiger Woods, though I know you were watching some of his round yesterday. Withdraws from an event, the Farmers Insurance Open, the 9th time in his PGA Tour career and 8th time as professional. Of all the numbers and stats you're going to be hearing, here's a couple to throw at you. He's 56th right now in the official world golf ranking, and he must reach the top 50 in the world by the end of the Honda Classic. So just crazy to think what's happened to Tiger Woods. And for more about it, we bring in Bob Harig via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, who writes and does a great job covering golf for ESPN.com. Bob, we can go into the vagaries of why exactly his body's breaking down, and I'll try and play doctor, but I never thought I'd be asking you about the fact Tiger Woods has now finished. Forget about where he's going. Finished. Played all 4 rounds, just 2 of his last 9 official starts in the PGA Tour, dating back to the start of 2014. What's your reaction to seeing he just can't stay healthy out there?
Yeah, good morning, guys. It really is really a shame. Just a week ago in Phoenix, he talked about feeling good and feeling healthy and having no issues, and now here we are again with these questions. He's not going to be able to perform at a high level if he can't stay healthy, and it's so much about being able to practice and work on his game. These guys he's competing against are, they're playing a lot of tournaments, they're working on their games, and now Tiger has to keep taking these breaks just so that he can get in a position to play, and it's making it very hard on him.
Tiger Woods has always said, I'll never go in a tournament that I don't think I can't win. Do you think that's still his thought process, even from last week in Phoenix to the start of this tournament before he had to go out, that he still had the thought process that he could win?
For one of the rare times it seemed this week that was not his mindset. It was strange to hear him talk about that in that way. He talked about being ready for Augusta, that the goal was to be ready for Augusta. It was in response to a question about the Doral event, which he's now not qualified for. And he had been asked, about trying to get in there and playing well enough. And he took it out farther and said, look, my main thing is being ready for Augusta. And, that seemed like, okay, let's lower the expectations this week. Let's not worry about this week. And frankly, he probably should have approached his comeback last summer that way, when he came back from back surgery. But he went to the British Open talking about winning, and everybody knew he just did not have the work in to be competitive. It's just, even him, it's just a lot to ask to be able to come back and play at that level. And to your question about winning, I don't think that should be the goal at all here now when he comes back. He needs to play. He needs to get through 18 holes. He needs to make a cut. He needs to then try to start getting in contention, and those are steps along the way that are a long way from actually winning a tournament.
Paul Azinger was making the point earlier, talking with Bob Harig, who covers golf for ESPN.com. Azinger was making the point, Bob, that the irony of the fact this guy who was rightly praised for being in such incredible shape now just has a body that's betraying him right now. And we had a segment earlier called Love It or Shove It, and the question was from our friend Bubba as to whether or not Tiger Woods will win another tournament. Now, I said that's ridiculous. He was a player of the year just a couple of years ago, but Mike was pointing out there's some credence to it when you see just how much he's struggling out there. Forget about majors. How challenging is it to be just for this guy to actually win tournaments again?
It's a fair question. I mean, when you figure going back a year ago this time, he's not been right. We didn't quite understand it in January of 2014, but he never really got set with his back. It had started to bother him late in 2013, right after he won the Bridgestone, his last victory, his 79th win. And, 4 tournaments was all he played. We walked off the course on one. He barely made it through another, then had surgery. And yes, it's absolutely a fair question at this point because he's not even been close. Let's be honest. He's only finished a few tournaments. He's not contended. It's so unlike him. But until he gets completely healthy, and really, it's about being able to work on his game. We're not really sure how much he's practiced. He doesn't tell us a whole lot about that. He says he's felt good, he's worked on his game, but really how much? How much can you stand over chip shots and putts when your back's bothering you? Or are you concerned that it's going to bother you if you do that too much? You've got to be able to put in the time, and there's questions at this point now how much he's able to do that, and now we've got it again because clearly, he's going to have to take a few days here to let this settle down and see what's up, and he doesn't have that. He needs all the time he can get working on his game.
I know this is tough to answer because the sampling is small this year. From the Phoenix Open last week, only 2 rounds to him playing around here with a bad back and pulling out after the 12 holes. But just a couple of weeks ago before the Phoenix Open, he said he had been touching numbers with his clubs that he hadn't touched in 15 years. And now that didn't mean the play was going to be great, but just that he was feeling that good. In maybe the bit you've seen of him play this year, which isn't a lot, I grant you, did his game look at all, even though he wasn't winning or near winning, did his swing or game look any different to you than it had in the past?
Yes, actually it did. Those things that you referenced there, he said that before the tournament in Phoenix. And he really, he only played 2 rounds, but he led the field in driving distance for those 2 rounds. And Tiger hasn't done that much lately. I mean, he's typically been hitting irons and fairway woods off tees, which hurts your distance to try to keep it in play. He's felt the confidence to hit the driver. Yes, it was not going in the right places yesterday, but last week he actually hit it pretty well. What was killing him, of course, was the short game, which got all the attention. I mean, he just was awful. But in the practice round that I saw, the Pro-Am, when things were casual, when he wasn't in competition, there was no pressure, he hit a lot of nice shots. He had a lot of good iron shots. There was reason for optimism at that point. I mean, we're just talking 9 days ago, so when he came back in December at his event at Isleworth, after having worked with his new coach, Chris Como, for just a month or so, you could already tell a difference. He was standing up to the ball differently. The people who are experts in the golf swing noticed that, he looked freer. He had lost a little bit of bulk, it appeared. He didn't appear as muscular, which people thought, hey, that's good. Maybe he's off the heavy weights, which obviously isn't good for his back, and seemed to be swinging freer. So those were all positives. Then these short game issues cropped up. You wonder if, in an effort to fix that, he spent too much time on it, and his back, started to get weary. Of course, the delays yesterday, which is what he pointed to, were the problems there. He got stiff. Leads to all kind of questions about why he didn't do a better job at trying to keep stretched out or what have you. Yeah, to answer your question, he did. He looked a lot better, but all of that now is out the window if he can't continue to build on it.
Excellent perspective from Bob Harig. As always, you can read his work on ESPN.com. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
The best of Mike and Mike.
We got some star power in the house now.
Whatever.
Shane Vereen and Rob Ninkovich of the New England Patriots, Super Bowl champions, kind of to join us here. Adnan, Virk, in for Greeny, alongside Golic, Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. The first question I'm going to go to Rob, because apparently Shane Vereen's mom was shaking when she met Golic and Greeny, which really, I don't want to dish your mom here on live national radio. That's a really sad statement that she was that excited.
That's a smart lady, right?
Is your family that enamored of this program as well, particularly Golic?
No, I guess not so much. Just excited to be here with you guys. But I did score a touchdown.
You did?
I did.
Again, was it 04?
That was 04.
04. Kyle Orton was a quarterback, correct?
Yes.
Did you guys win that game?
Yeah, by a lot. That was when Taylor Stubblefield caught like a 98-yard touchdown and like 40 yards away from the score, and he just was boiling up the whole way down.
Yeah.
So,
I don't recall asking what happened there.
It was a great game.
Yeah, whatever.
A couple of sacks in that game. You were big.
Yeah, 2 sacks in that game as well. Yeah, 2 sacks and a touchdown.
Did I ask?
Cut the pass from Kyle Orton.
I mean, listen. By the way, strong with the beard.
Oh, thank you. This is a 6-7-month beard right here. I line it up to make it look clean.
Really, really incredible. All right, couple from the offensive defensive side. First, Shane, I mean, your mother's a lovely lady. I bet your brother's just fantastic. 11 catches in this game. So, was knowing the Patriots and knowing how their game plans can change so much, Going into this game, was that the plan? The short pass between what you caught and what Edelman was catching short, was that the game plan, or was it what happened just from what you saw of what the defense gave you?
It was definitely part of the game plan. I would say, though, that going into the game, we didn't know where the ball was going to go each time, but we knew that somebody was going to be open at some point. We knew we had to win our one-on-one matchups, and luckily I was able to win, at least 11 times and able to bring the ball in.
At what point after the game, at some point did you say, I just caught 11 passes in the Super Bowl?
I was too busy celebrating, jumping up and down, crying, looking like a little baby. But I was just focused. I wanted to win so bad. I mean, obviously it's a Super Bowl, but stats didn't really matter. It was just such a great victory for the team.
And one of the coolest stories I think about your team is the fact that as much as people talk about a dynasty in Belichick and Brady, there are often guys in your team who are underlooked. And I think about you, Rob, the fact that you were cut 3 times for a landing in New England, the fact that you've had to fight and kind of claw to get to this point. I mean, what does it say about the character of your team that you're kind of able to overcome a lot of adversity even prior to getting in the game and facing that adversity?
Yeah, I would say that, our team across the board is, very mentally tough. And there's guys that have, had different journeys, different paths to get where they were at. And, we won the Super Bowl as a team. And, the things that we had gone through the season, the ups and downs, it was great to reach, that point. So, again, my career, there was bumps in the road, but, it just made me tougher. And, I can look back on it and just smile at it. Smile at it all.
Rob Ninkovich and Shane Vereen joining us in studio with their Subway Fresh Take, the new Subway Simple 6 menu. 6 subs, 6 meals, $6 every day. Subway, eat fresh. What was it like for you being on the field for that Seahawks interception, though?
That was an amazing play. Malcolm, was like shot out of a cannon to go get that football. So, again, for me, I, turned around quickly, just to see what happened, and I saw what happened. The football was in his hands, and I just lost it. It was instant tears. Just so many emotions running through your mind at that point.
Well, we had Malcolm on the day after, and he talked about the preparation. He talked about how we ran that play in practice, and I got burned on it, and Belichick, got my grill about it, saying, you got to make that play. And we broke it down how Browner did a great job of jamming Kerr, so we couldn't. He gave Butler that beeline to go to the ball. But so talk about that, the preparation of going over plays like that, so you're ready in that situation, and you guys couldn't have been more prepared for at least that play and certainly the rest of the game for those situations.
Yeah, definitely. The 2 weeks of preparation that we had for that game was huge. And, Bill says all the time, it's about the preparation that wins you the football game. So the things that we were able to do during the week really helped us out. And seeing that play during practice, the stacked receivers, knowing that they like to run those pick routes, Malcolm saw it and jumped on it, and he made the play.
Did you see anything out there that you didn't see during your preparation?
That again, this Seattle, the way that they like to run their offense, they like to repeat plays, and they run what they like to run over and over again, and they're successful at it. So for us, it was really just tuning into the things that they do well and trying to, not let them do them well.
And clearly the fact you guys had that poise, no matter what was happening in that game. And Shane, I think about the fact, you're down by 10 points in the fourth quarter, and the way that you and the rest of the offense were able to march down the field methodically and get that touchdown, really kind of seem to have that confidence and that poise. Speak a little bit about what Tom Brady was like and what his temperament was and how you guys were flowing off of him.
Yeah, I'll tell this story till the day I die. The final drive we had, I remember we were just getting into the huddle. And, you always hear about these moments when you watch NFL films and when you watch all these big Super Bowl stories. And I'll never forget, I'm in the huddle, and Tom comes into the huddle, and he goes, "Okay, fellas, we need a championship drive." And I remember it so clearly, so vividly, and then we went ahead and put that drive together. He's always, not always, in that moment he was very relaxed, very calm, very collected, focused. There was an intense amount of focus, I would say, in his eyes.
You love stories like that because there's a famous one of Joe Montana pointing out to his offense. There's John Candy sitting in the stands, to try and keep everybody kind of loose.
Yeah.
So this was a more of a so it wasn't an intense way he said it, or was a loose way? No. Was he loose in the huddle?
Yeah, he was loose. He just came in and just looked everybody in the eyes and said, "Hey, we need a championship drive. Let's go." And everybody kind of okay.
And the other part of that, because we have about Belichick and Brady and 4 rings together. And Rob, you got to clear this up for me, because whenever I talk to a member of the Patriots or guys, and they go, you know what, Belichick's actually a really funny guy. Like, he has a great sense of humor. He doesn't show it to the media. He purposely wants to be bland and limit things. But is he like practical jokes here? He got whoopee cushions and stuff we don't know about?
He has some one-liners that will get everyone laughing. Not suitable for TV right now. He definitely says some things, and we all laugh at. And again, in the media, sometimes he can be a little grumpy, but again, I think it's just he's all business all the time. And, that's the way it should be.
I'm looking at this. You're both on Twitter, Shane Vereen 34, and Rob, you're at Ninko50, but you just started Twitter?
I just started.
How is that possible? In your era
of 75 years old.
How old are you?
Old guy. I'm not old. I'm 31. That's young.
Maybe he's old that young. Is 31? No, 31 is not a little. I'm 36.
With the beard.
With the beard. I mean, I cut this thing off.
He's at least 40.
He's
at least 40.
Some years. Maturity.
There's a lot of men jealous of this beard, I'm just saying.
I know my son's got one less than that. He's an old lineman, so he would be jealous of all 4.
Exactly.
But so you just jumped on it now?
I just, I figured after the Super Bowl win, why not let the fans experience that with me? So, before I was kind of social media, not really into that. So
I figured savvy when it comes to it.
Yeah, exactly. So why not? Why not? So I'm on Twitter. Ninko50. Check me out.
I imagine you'll get some
Give him a follow.
I got to ask this because it was going on, and I'm not going to prejudice with the way I answered it, because people about the whole Deflategate thing, they all said to me, Golic, wouldn't that be a huge distraction in the locker room? And I gave my answer about what other positions and what's going on in the locker room if something like that was going on with the head coach and the quarterback. So I won't prejudice with my answer. So when this was all going, maybe I just did. When this was all going on, what was going on for the rest of you in the locker room?
Honestly, maybe Rob can speak more, but I didn't feel shaken at all. I didn't feel like anybody was really too worried about it in the locker room. I think everybody was more excited and just looking forward and getting ready to play against Seattle in the Super Bowl. That was kind of our focus. We figure that there's always going to be something or other that comes up, but I mean, it's something as silly as that. To us, we were just like, I guess there's something to talk about. We really didn't.
Did more people come to you because you've been on the team for a bit and one of the, the elder statesmen of the team in that?
Yeah, exactly what Shane said. Honestly, it didn't really affect me. I was so focused on what our next game was, and that's the biggest game of my life, that I wasn't going to let anything affect my preparation. And, really the way that the media, they come to you, ask you questions about it. And a lot of my response was, I'm a defensive football player. I'm going after the football.
You have an out.
I'm trying to hit quarterbacks and tackle running backs. I'm not catching a ball every play. So, really, for me, it doesn't affect me.
Great stuff from you guys.
Yeah.
Congrats on a wonderful season.
Thank you.
Easy question on the way out. Was Gronk getting after it the most?
He's enjoying the moment. Let's just say that.
As we found out, even when you lost the Super Bowl, he enjoyed the moment. And God love him.
He's having a great time.
He doesn't have a bad day.
No, he does not.
Our entire crew would like to get an invite to one of Gronk's parties. Just let us know.
Guys.
Shane Vereen and Rob Ninkovich. Enjoy ESPN today. Thanks so much, Pelt.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNRadio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Why do we snack? Hunger? Taste? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds not only have something better to do, they're doing it. Almonds are heart health for those with heart. Packed with energy to keep up with anyone. It's that one-of-a-kind crunch that promises to keep you in the game for a long time to come. California almonds. Crunch on.